faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap, and my name is XRP.
Hi. Consciousness and puppies. I like puppies. We had one ourselves. Let me find that picture from my
I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap, and my name is XRP. I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap, and my name is XRP.
Hello everyone, let's get started. I don't have no financial interests, I'm no financial advisor, I don't have no sponsored links, and I don't want no donations, please. I want to quickly try to show a picture, if I find it. Why don't I find it here? Okay, let me do it the other way around. I will quickly export it. YouTube. Hold on. Oh. Maybe. Now, hopefully that one is working. Preview. Isn't she a cutie? That was our dog when she was a puppy. Isn't she a cutie? Or wasn't she? Look at that. Unbelievable. Okay, enough about that, about private stuff. Actually, I wanted to say a few words about the following. This is really important to understand. I got a question on my channel. Let me read it for you. From a guy called George Chrysler. Dear Michael, could you please answer and educate me and your audience on my following points? It would appear that the price of the XRP token is irrelevant to any cross-border payment, whether it be $100 or 1 cent, as the cost per transaction is only a few cents, no matter be it or $10 million. Totally correct. Technically, the price of XRP is irrelevant as long as you can buy enough to transact the amount you want to transact. We all know that in reality there just isn't enough liquidity for the sheer amount of transactions taking place. Now the second part of his question. Secondly, the same XRP token used to complete the first transaction can be used multiple times, infinitum. Therefore, there is no need for any bank to hold any more than a few hundred XRP, and there is no need for the price to rise in value either, given by both these scenarios. Okay, now the important thing to understand is basically the one and only simple question, and that's what I basically answered to that guy. Are you an XRP holder? Then I assumed, okay, let's assume you're holding XRP since 5 minutes. That's 300 seconds. Let's assume an XRP could be used every 4 seconds. That's 75 times. Then I asked him, did you buy and sell 75 times since you bought XRP? And obviously the answer is no. We all buy and hodl. And that's the reason why the price has to increase, because there is, I'm pretty sure, less than 5 billion XRP totally liquid available. So, no voice. Are you not hearing me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Can you hear me? I hope so. Should all be fine. Okay, so you basically understood what I was talking about. That's very important to understand. Technically, those guys telling you an XRP could be used 20,000 times a day is correct. Reality is different. That would only work if everything would be totally automated, and if it basically had just one huge pool to draw XRP from. But that's also not the case. The XRP is I explained that in the last live stream, is going through 2 exchanges. Let's say Bitstamp and Bitso in Mexico. Now if they use up all the XRP for the amount of transactions in that corridor, how would you be able to do a transaction on 2 totally different exchanges? I don't know, between Euro and the Philippine or Japanese yen or whatever. It just wouldn't work. It's very important to understand. That's it. Now I'm open to you guys, to your questions. Der Meister ruft, ich bin nicht der Meister. Is it Christmas? Not yet. 3 days missing. No, but actually we have the reason why, I'm basically not working since beginning of December. And while we had quite some stuff going on in the first 10 days or so, this week on Tuesday arrived the family from my wife from Brazil here. That's her daughter and her granddaughter, and also kind of her grandson, but it's actually the grandson of the sister of my wife, Yuri. And with them in our house, it's usually busy, and once in a while I prefer to have my privacy, and I share my privacy now with you, like not needing to take care of the others. Okay, I want her now. Crypto puppy. How could the price of XRP ever be high if institutions don't have to hold XRP? Tobias Kramer, interesting question. Well, for ODL to work, institutions don't have to hold XRP. It's actually what I showed before. The sending bank sends fiat, let's say US dollar, to the first exchange. There is XRP bought, sent to the second exchange, let's say Bitso. Then it's sold to Mexican peso and sent to the recipient bank or whatever other financial institution being the recipient of the fiat, in that case Mexican peso. And that's basically, and because those transactions will happen in such a volume, not just in the amount of transaction, but also in the heat of the transactions. Right now we can see transactions up to $20,000, but I have showed in other videos, especially in my video about the target 2 analysis, in target 2 in the European system. It's not that target 2 or any other domestic system will ever use XRP, but it can be used to extrapolate the figures to a global scale. When we assume that the European system is about 20% of the global market, then you get the idea. In target 2 we have I need to check the figure again before I hold on, preview. I think give me a second. Every 3 seconds we have a 50 million euro payment. Actually, I could show that again. So this is the average transaction, which is larger than 1 million. We have 10% of these, 34,000 of these per day, in the total value of 1.6 trillion. That gives us an average of 50 million. If we calculate that down, it's like every 3 seconds. That's the volume we'll have to expect. And now the second part of the question from Tobias was, if they did, wouldn't it be a difference to SWIFT because of the blocked capital? Sorry, no cinnamon. That's correct. If they did hold XRP, in theory they had blocked capital as well, but the Nostros currently cannot be used as I don't know the English term. Actually, I don't even know the proper German term. You have on the Bilanz is called, on the accounting, you have the incoming and the outgoing money, and then you have different of these account types, and basically the Nostros are a liability for the banks. it's not, they cannot use it to justify that they have enough liquidity in order, if something goes wrong with them, that they could pay debt of that, because it's technically considered a liability. Now, if they did hold XRP, that wouldn't be the case, because they could use the XRP to pay off other liabilities if they had any and got into trouble. So that's a very crucial difference, Tobias. Hold on. Well, Mike's underscore KM. Well, actually no. The institutions themselves, they won't be buying and selling XRP. It'll be this Ripple technology doing that for them. But even then, I mean, they will not automate. I mean, all those transactions are not automated. Basically, let's say when I am online in my e-banking account and I'm sending Geo XRP 10,000 whatever euro, it'll take me, I don't know, a minute to get the form filled out properly. It's at one point there is a person entering those details, but the difference between old and new, those banks using RippleNet, there I would get immediately the information. We also need to know Geo's birthday as example, or his country of residence, or whatever other important date, and then I could fill that in. The transaction would go off. So it's the actual transaction is totally automated. That's correct, Mike's. But until it gets there, it's a fully manual process. I mean, could be that large institutions are kind of uploading batch transactions. That could be, but I would assume that maybe there is a threshold, I don't know, up to 1 million, and everything bigger they might wanna check themselves, because running after money which has been sent out to the wrong person, or that's basically a stupid thing to run after that money. And the higher that value is, the more stupid it is. Hallo Richard, Kumpel. Who are we buying XRP from? Well, that's a good question. I mean, initially, and maybe still today, partially, it'll be the exchanges selling you whatever crypto. But eventually, they might only step in if you want to buy an amount which they cannot serve right now. So you will buy from me and I will buy from you. Basically, it's order books, sell order books and buy order books, and those are matched, and then there is a match on an order, and then it drops on one side and it rises on the other side, and the next order is matched. I think it's quite a complicated process on exchanges, but usually it's I mean, an exchange is basically a marketplace where you and me can meet in order for our requirements to be met. I want to sell, you want to buy. Let's find a price where we can get into negotiations or into a trade. KB, I am pretty sure that these regulations taking effect in Europe and in Japan and obviously also in US, but there I still didn't find any confirmation. I don't know if it's a rumor. But that will open the doors for the potent market players like CLS banks to play the role as market makers. Because on the receiving side, someone needs to buy XRP. And if I send you a transaction in the value of $50 million, a day trader might not have that money. A day trader might have, I don't know, $20,000 ready at hand to play with. Maybe if he's good, maybe 50,000. But everything above requires really good market makers, which really have maybe hundreds of millions of fiat laying around in order for to be able to buy the XRP and to pay out the appropriate amount of fiat. And by the way, those market makers, I don't know where I have that, but I think I did, maybe I didn't publish that one. I did once a rough calculation about possible profits from a market maker. And even if they're just doing, I don't know, 0.1% or so on each trade, if they trade a lot throughout the day, let's say 20 trades, it's already quite good money. That'll be 0.1 times 20, that'll be already 2%. And that per day, and imagine that. And now imagine that profit for a company playing market maker role in the hundreds of millions transactions. That's quite some money you will be earning. Konstantinos Monoyos, know this Series 3, Series C funding won't affect the price. I don't know if we see 3 digits this year. I don't think so. Xpool, there is no explanation about that. When I tried Scott G, when I asked Ethan Beard as well, he was kind of making fun of me. Maybe we will be swimming in XRP, was his answer. A balance sheet, thank you, Bean75. That's exactly the difference between Nostros and an asset which is actually not a liability. I don't know the other term. But when it can be used to pay off a liability, then, I mean, in Basel III, maybe I can explain it like that. Since Basel III, banks worldwide, if they don't want to get on the blacklist, they have to have a higher capital ratio for the assets under management. I think maybe the terms is wrong. I think it's about 13 or 15% of all the money they manage, they have to have in capital, just so that they won't fail. And XRP on the balance sheet will count to those 13% capital. Nostros, however, will move those 13% down, because it's a liability. It's actually the other direction. That's important for banks. Scott G, thank you for the terms. Jan Christiansen, are you from Denmark? Hi Michael, could you please differentiate between the remittance business in different corridors and the actual need for banks in the RippleNet? I don't quite understand your question, Jan Christiansen. What exactly do you want to know the difference from? I mean, a remittance is not a payment. The globally understood term remittance is I send money to the family of my wife in Brazil, but they didn't give me anything. They just need money for the dentist or whatever. Banks, however, most of the money they are sending is part of a payment. Let's say BMW buys for €500,000 at Pirelli in Italy tires. Then they receive the tires and they pay the $500,000. That's a payment, that's not a remittance, that's the difference. If you are referring to the difference in corridors, I mean, there's countries where import and export have an imbalance. Actually, most of the countries. There are many countries who do import more and many countries who do export more products, and so there is always an imbalance. But with XRP that could be, I would assume, properly adjusted, because those buying enough XRP in the countries doing exporting, because they receive money and thus also receive XRP, they could sell their XRP in another market. And on those global exchanges like Binance and Bittrex and Bitstamp, that's that's definitely possible, because they deal in different how do you say, fiat currencies. Mike's again, well, as I said before, the big corporations will for sure have a batch process to I mean, when you consider that in Europe 340,000 transactions are being handled day by day, then for sure there is a batch process. I'm assuming, let's take again BMW. I'm pretty sure that everything up to, I don't know, maybe 1 million will be batch processed. But everything above, like these 500 million tires they bought from Pirelli in Italy, they will want to control such payments, and that will be for sure a manual process. It will not automate such huge payments. I'm pretty sure of that. Will banks start using XRP in Q1? In Q1, I'm 100% sure. Geo Chrysler, I hope you read my answer. I was basically, the beginning of the live stream was actually targeted to you. Maybe you want to go back and listen the first 5 or 10 minutes. How long are we in the stream? Can I see that somewhere? I don't. Ah, there, 30 minutes. Ah, already. Interesting. Content consumer. Well, that's an interesting question. Regarding the tax, I don't know how, but for sure there will be special, I don't know, something. I mean, basically, those market makers are not buying the digital assets because they want to make profit from the increase or decrease of the price of the asset. They wanna make trades and get the spread in difference of the price. That's their profit, and I'm pretty sure they will have some special thing going. I mean, basically, content consumer. You could ask any banker who is in the securities market. It's the same. It's the same there. I'm pretty sure that if you buy a security, let's say Apple stock in the US, it's a taxable event as well. But there is also market makers for securities. Let's assume you want to buy 3 Apple stock. No one wants to sell you 3 Apple stock, but a market maker. That's his job, making sure that you're satisfied. But the actual institutions buying and selling, they buy tens of thousands Apple stock and not just 3. And the 3 is where the market maker steps in the securities business. And if he'd be taxable for each of these 3 Apple stock he buys or sells, that'll be, he wouldn't do that work, and hence you couldn't buy 3 Apple stock because there wouldn't be a market maker in the business. I know in the London stock, and I don't know if it's called stock exchange, but in the London exchange, there is an official job description called market maker. Actually, DP Cohen, you're correct with the Nostro and Vostro, but basically the same account, the same money. Let's say me and you are a bank, DP Cohen, and I have money in your bank. Then it's my Nostro when I talk about that money. But when you talk about my money in your bank, then you talk to me, your Vostro has that amount of money, because you're talking to me about my money in your bank. However, when I talk about my money in your bank, then it's just a different perspective. It's the same account, just the perspective is different. That's what many people don't understand. So basically, one and the same account is both a Nostro and a Vostro, depending whom is talking about it. If I'm a bank and others have money on my balance sheet, and someone is calling me and asking how much money do we have in your bank, then I call then I'd tell him in your Vostro is about 10 million. And then he might answer, I thought in my Nostro is only 9 million, something like that. Well, actually, Gino Patel, this law, actually, let me make a note, because now I have closed my super document where I keep track. Hold on a moment. I will put the link to that document into the description after the live stream. Put link to the custody law description. You know, actually I found quite an interesting article which explains it more or less. I think even though the law, I think, gets introduced 1st of January, then they have, I think, time until 10th of January or so, if they really want to be in this custodian kind of role. And then there will be like I don't know how it's called, a judgment or an assessment of their request to become a custodian of crypto assets. And then there is a second time deadline on, I think, somewhere in March. For others who want to do the same, but I don't know, you can read it up in that explanation on. I found an article which really nicely explains it properly. I wouldn't count that on the 1st of January they would start holding crypto. I would expect them doing it towards the end of January, because this assessment of their requests, I could imagine that they could or can send in their request already now. I think the deadline is 10th of January. But don't count on the 1st of January. I really don't think so. Geo XRP, well, I mean, the question from Geo is actually SR3 and SBI. I mean, considering the fact we only had 2 participants sending and receiving money in the whole market, then basically they just would need to have enough XRP to in the size of their highest transaction. Let's say their highest transaction a day is $1 billion US. That would basically mean that at the current price of 20 cents that they would have to have 5 billion XRP. And then they could just send this back and forth. But that's not ODL. That's something happening between them. And they don't want others to see their transactions. That's why they will be using ODL. And ODL means that they actually have to buy, or the technology will buy the appropriate amount of XRP on an exchange. Alcino Patel, actually those 200 or whatever, how many million Series C funding, it was told in the article that they want to use that to aggressively expand, whatever they mean by expanding. George Chrysler, watch my video from I think last Sunday or so. And also watch the video about target 2 analysis, because there you get an idea of the amount of transactions we will expect. And also watch the video of the, well, actually that's the 2 important ones. Gaurav XRP can, I think, as soon as we see high value transaction going through the system, the price can go anywhere. It really depends on the volume. I'm pretty sure that $1,000 will not be enough, even at just the 1% of the volume. If we see 5% or 10% of global volume, then we see 4 digits. Butterfly trader. I'm fine, Patrick. Thank you. I'm drunk. Yeah, Siegfried Thoma. I mean, why do European media not really cover XRP or crypto? I mean, they did cover it basically every day in the bull run 2000, like 2 years ago, during the bull run 2017. But I mean, most people have no clue. They have no clue about digital assets and cryptocurrency. And as a matter of fact, we're not. I personally think there is worldwide enough investors, like retail investors, already available. I don't think it'll need way more. Paul S., I really don't know what they will be using that money for. The important thing about this Series C funding news, to me, but most, I can also see it here now, maybe because it's clear to all of you, but for all the doubters, the most important part of that, what I got out of it, is that Ripple doesn't need money to fund their operations, that they have enough money to fund their operations. That's what I got out of that news. What they're using this, whatever amount of money they're receiving for in the future, I'm pretty sure they will be using it for something which will help XRP in one or the other way. But it will definitely not have a direct effect on the price. Do you think the banks have the fiscal cash in these You mean the cash they would need to pay to the tax? I don't think so. They would be in deep trouble. Well, Paul S. is opening an interesting question. He's asking if banks are planning to acquire exchanges like Binance, Bitstamp, Bittrex, and the likes, and if once the regulations go through that they make those purchases final. I mean, that's an interesting idea. Paul S. I'm pretty sure there will be many banks wanting to play a role in those. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in just as an exchange by all the spreads you earn. Maybe we see one or the other exchange being bought by one of these banks. But for us as retail investors, I do not think that it'll make a difference. And what you have to understand is, I mean, those banks would be interested in the big guys like Binance or Bitstamp, and I doubt that any of the big banks will have enough cash to buy one of these big ones. Now, if a bank might be interested in buying Bit, so I don't know. I mean, maybe a Mexican bank. George Chrysler, I repeat again, watch those videos. A high price makes XRP more liquid. Basically, right now, you will not be able to do a $50 million transaction because there is simply not enough, or maybe for one or two of such transactions there would be enough liquidity on an exchange. I showed that in that video I did a week ago. If you wanted to transact $50 million via XRP through Bitstamp a week ago, you would have needed to execute 6,000 sell orders until you had XRP in the value of $50 million, and that's just not. That would take literally, I don't know, 30 minutes or longer to execute all those trades. That's not real-time gross settlement system. That's something like delayed real-time gross settlement system. So in order for a 50 million transaction to be able to happen at once, the price needs to go up. There is no way around. And if you doubt George, please watch all my videos in my playlist, my most important XRP videos. I cannot go through all those important pieces now in a particular live stream. It's really important that you understand how it works. You know how much XRP the big exchanges. Well, Timmy Frocker, you can check at Ledger Exposed. I guess it's between $500 million and $1 billion. However, some of those might have 2 or 3 wallets. One might be like this wallet where you send your XRP to if you want to sell. Now, if all the XRP in that particular wallet is from sellers like you, I don't know. neither I do know. It's just my assumption is that the exchanges themselves, not really your XRP you want to sell, really the exchanges themselves, I'm thinking between $500 million and $1 billion. And the rest is basically the XRP from people wanting to sell XRP on that exchange. The time frame for 4 digits, there is literally no time frame, but I think it could very well happen in the next 6 months and 10 days. Gaurav, I mean, Gaurav is asking, there are so many intelligent investors in the world. Okay, how many intelligent investors do we have in the world? 500, 5,000, 10,000. I'd say all those people, and that's about 10,000 if I recall properly, who hold more than 100,000 XRP are part of those intelligent investors. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but in all those recent drops, everyone I know, they were just accumulating. No one is selling. On each 10% drop, people are pissed, but they buy more. Yeah, now I understand your question, Jan Christiansen. Okay, I mean, the problem is, and that was also a bit a disappointment as well. I told Richard, actually, before I decided to accept the invitation to go to... Muito obrigado, menina. This time it was the granddaughter together with my wife bringing me the coffee. Now that's a service. When I looked at the agenda of Swell, I was a little bit disappointed because there wasn't really like any of the session targeted at, let's say, the big banks. It was basically only about those remittances, those smaller banks and stuff. And that was one of the reasons I first, even though I had the invitation, I didn't want to go. And okay, Richard convinced me to go anyway due to different reasons. But then when we actually were there, something interesting I figured, and I told that in my recap about Swell, and I hope that this is answering your question, Jan Christiansen. At the keynote of Swell, the hall was packed full. The second session as well, and then was lunch, and after lunch, like a third of the hall was full, and the other 2/3, I don't know where those people went, and I was actually and it stayed like that from that on. It was not once anymore totally packed, and I was really thinking why. And the only explanation I had to that is that those big banks, they had their private meetings on Thursday morning before the official part of Swell actually started. And then maybe they wanted to see the keynote, because the keynote is the keynote, that's something you don't want to miss. And then some of them also stayed for the second session, then they went home, because the rest of the session was targeted at the remittances, and their business was being kept and dealt with in those private sessions in the beginning. That's also the reason why we I mean, the main reason for that is the NDAs. Why do we not know the exact number and also which banks actually are part of RippleNet? But I tweeted that this week. Don't be fooled by the price, I think was the title of my tweet, Jan Christiansen. And then I added a screenshot about, I think, a 50 million transaction, and referred to those 6,000 sell orders which would need to be fulfilled in order to be able to do a 50 million transaction. And I added in the same tweet, after all, it's called IOV, Internet of Value, and not Internet of Small Value. But the thing is, they just don't talk about it. It's the same with BIS, Bank of International Settlement, IMF, World Bank, all those central bankers, what was the name of the British central banker, Mark Carney, I think. I mean, when you hear him talking, or Christine Lagarde when she was still at the IMF, like every time she was using, or they are using the word digital asset or something, you could put the XRP, but they don't say XRP yet. Even if just 5% of those mentions of digital asset actually means XRP, it'll still be freaking huge. It's just a privacy issue. They don't want to talk about that yet, Jan Christiansen. Yet, I'm 100% sure. I mean, another thing, Jan Christiansen, I proved, and that tweet got quite some attention. I don't know, about 3 months back or so. I printed out the list of the top 100 banks, and I printed out the list of the banks. Leo, this guy from Cyprus with the XRP Arcade website. He is maintaining a list of all Ripple and RippleNet connections, and then I printed all the banks from his site, and I compared the two. And from the top 100 banks, 30% are officially known RippleNet customers. And don't you tell me they don't want to save an additional 30% over the cost they're saving already now. Don't you tell me that. I mean, a banker would lose his temper already if you told him we can save 2% of the cost. He would already go crazy. If you go and tell him we can save an additional 30% or 40%, he will go crazy. I mean, he will just see dollar signs. But yet they don't talk about it. I agree. Jan Christiansen. D Slim, well, that depends. D Slim is asking if we might be able to sell all our XRP. That depends on how many you have. If you have 2,000, I'm pretty sure you will be able to sell all of them. If you have 200,000, it may take you, I don't know, 2-3 months to sell everything. I don't think, I mean, could be that in a lucky shot you might be able to sell 4 times 50,000. In a lucky shot you might be able to do it. But my recommendation is sell as much as you need fiat for whatever thing you need. If you want to buy a house for $3 million, then buy enough XRP to be able to buy that house. If you want a Lambo, sell enough XRP to buy your Lambo, but let the rest appreciate. Don't cash out everything. And those who will buy, and this is also something which is very, very important to understand, also for this George Chrysler, this Slim. Those who will be buying are those who need to buy in order to do an ODL transaction. Don't worry that there will be buyers. There will be buyers. And the buyers on the other side, such that the fiat can be paid out, will be the market makers. Konstantinos Monoios. XLM is not a major competitor. I could see XLM very well being used for the micropayments in the future, but they literally, I mean, their liquidity is close to zero compared to XRP. Rive Mass, yes, that's what I think could happen. That the price could actually increase in one go, actually in 15 minutes to 4 digits. Maybe we will see 3 or 4 steps. I don't know, $5, $20, $100, $500, $1,000, something like that. I don't know. But theoretically it'll be possible to raise it like immediately to 4 digits. Like within 15 minutes. GP Cardoso, no, my wife is not Portuguese. She speaks Portuguese though, she's from Brazil. Lord Vendetta, your question I have answered before basically, but don't you worry. I mean, 10k at 1,000, that'll be 10 million. I show the screenshot. Actually, let me show it again. I should still have it open. That's the figures from Target 2. I don't say that any domestic system will ever use XRP, but the figures can be extrapolated to the global cross-border business. And when we look at that, here in this row we see payments larger than $1 million. There is 10% of all payments are larger than $1 million. It's 34,000 transactions per day in the value of 1.6 trillion. So basically, like, almost the total amount of money is in transactions higher than $1 million. That gives us an average of 50 million payment every 3 seconds. So don't you worry about 10 million. That's literally nothing. Imagine that, like every 3... Okay, I mean, that's like 100% market share. That you would need, let's say, every 30 seconds. But still, every 30 seconds, I mean, it's still quite a lot of, and quite high transactions going through the system. So don't you worry, Lord Vendetta. I think up to 10 million you'll be pretty fine. Yes, George, many would have, especially the newer followers, should watch most of my videos in the playlist on my YouTube channel called My Most Important XRP Videos, because most of them basically explain the journey and what I learned and what my thinking is behind all those things, and it's very crucial. I cannot explain that in one single live stream. Yes, Jan Christiansen, that's what I strongly believe. There will be the flip of a switch. Maybe this switch will have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions. I don't know. But I mean, come on. Can Galgatron's theory of a slow price increase be right? We are seeing now since a year XRP live. We officially know MoneyGram is using ODL for the last 3 months. And check the price. I mean, we have been almost at 40 cents. Now we're like at half of it. That doesn't sound to me like a slow price increase. That sounds to me like a failed theory. If we had seen in these 3 months now a daily 1% price increase, I might have accepted that the Galgatron slow price increase could be partially right. But that's actually when I'm tweeting feed this damn monkey a Red Bull, then I'm referring to there is a slow bit rate. Let me check. Can you still hear me well? Anyway, we will end that live stream soon. We're already over an hour and I don't want to make it too long. Let me check the last question. Jared, I cannot answer that. I mean, that depends on your beliefs. I believe we will see in 5 to 6 years 5 digits. I mean, 5 digits. Maybe you understand now 4 digits if I show you 5 digits. Do your calculation. I don't know what you need to be rich or to make the rest of your life an easy life. I mean, there at 4 digits, which whale would be able to manipulate the price? It wouldn't be possible anymore. Not one of these idiots would have enough cash to I mean, they could try to drop the price, but they wouldn't have the cash. Even if they dropped the price 10%, they wouldn't have enough money to buy back in. So frozen Michael. So excellent connection, it now says. Come back. It says excellent connection, but then I don't know what's happening. Anyway, I hope you can still hear me. I'm sorry. Can you not hear me? Can you even not hear me anymore? Please close your mouth. Close your mouth. Seeing a ghost. I'm sorry. Let's break it here. No video, audio. Anyway, I wanted to close the stream here. Thanks for your patience, your trust, your interesting questions and feedbacks. Have a very Merry Christmas. XRP. Bye bye. Take care.